Rain fell in thick sheets as the auction hall buzzed with whispers and murmurs, the scent of desperation heavy in the air. Amara stood still at the center of the room, her frame fragile under the weight of a thin, soaked cotton dress that clung to her skin like regret. Her hands trembled slightly, not from the cold but from humiliation. Her brother's debt, a mountain built from years of gambling, lying, and failed promises, had swallowed her life whole. She never imagined her body would be used to repay it. But here she was, sold like property, all because her brother had once believed in easy money and quick escapes. They told her she could save his life. They didn't say it would cost her soul. Across the room, seated like royalty on a leather armchair, was Cairo Donovan, the enigmatic billionaire CEO whose name stirred awe and fear across continents. He was known for destroying companies with a smile and building empires without blinking. His suit was cut like war armor, dark and precise, and his eyes burned with the cool sharpness of a man who never forgot betrayal. He didn't speak during the auction. He merely raised a single gloved hand and the hall went silent. $3.5 million. That was what he paid to own her. No one dared bid against him. No one questioned why a man like him wanted a girl from the slums of Lagos. No one but Amara, because unlike them, she knew who he really was. They said it would be for 1 year. 1 year of obedience. 1 year of silence. 1 year of pretending not to know what she knew. She watched his eyes scan her as if calculating how quickly she'd break. He didn't recognize her, not truly, not yet. But Amara remembered every inch of his face. The world knew him as the king of tech. She remembered him as the man who destroyed her father's name with a single leaked file. Her father, Dr. Okchukwu Nnamani, a brilliant computer scientist, had been framed for cyber espionage, accused of selling sensitive prototypes to Russian agencies. The media crucified him. The industry blacklisted him, and a month after that he was found dead in his apartment. Suicide, they said. But Amara had read the original files, the true ones, encrypted in a folder her father hid behind layers of code. And in the metadata in the digital fingerprints was a name, Cairo Donovan. That's why she said yes to being bought. That's why she walked into the lion's den dressed in rags. Because sometimes, to burn down an empire, you must first let the tyrant believe he owns you. His estate was a fortress built in glass and marble, perched above a cliff that swallowed the Atlantic like a beast. Amara's room overlooked the ocean, a cruel trick, giving a prisoner a view of freedom. She wasn't allowed to leave the premises without his permission. She wasn't allowed to use her phone or touch a computer. She was monitored by guards with earpieces and cold eyes, but none of that mattered. She had memorized the blueprints of this house years ago. She knew where the server room was. She knew the backup power routes. She knew how to bring the whole thing crashing down, but what she hadn't prepared for was him. Cairo didn't treat her like a lover or a slave. He treated her like furniture, unseen, unspoken to, used only when necessary. At night he wouldn't come to her room, but he made her sleep outside his. Like a dog, like a warning. The humiliation burned, but Amara swallowed it. Every time he passed her in the hallway and ignored her presence, she smiled inside, because with every step she was getting closer, watching his schedule, learning his weaknesses. Waiting for the day he would trust her enough to open a door he never should. But then came the night that changed everything. She had just cleaned his study, the place he always locked when not inside. A strange vibration hummed from the drawer near his desk. Curiosity bit at her, but she knew better than to touch. Just as she turned to leave, Cairo walked in. His tie was loose, his shirt half unbuttoned, and his face was tired, vulnerable. A look she never expected to see on the devil. He poured himself a drink, didn't acknowledge her presence, and then spoke in a whisper as if to himself. They said I had to kill the girl, that she knew too much. Amara froze. I didn't believe them, but the last time I didn't listen, 3 men died. His voice shook, not with fear, but with something worse. Guilt, For a flicker of a moment she doubted her mission. Could a monster feel regret? Could a liar mourn the lives he stole? Then he turned, his eyes locking onto hers like he had known she was there the whole time. "Tell me, Amara," he said, voice now sharp and precise. "Do you think I'm capable of murder?" She didn't flinch. She had been waiting for this test. "I think anyone is," she replied. When pushed far enough, something in his jaw tightened. And then he did the unthinkable. He walked up to her, close enough to hear her heartbeat, and cupped her chin in his hand. "You're not afraid of me?" "No," she said. "You should be." That night he didn't send her to her cold cot outside his room. He made her sleep in his bed, not for sex, for something else, something confusing. He laid beside her but didn't touch her. He watched the ceiling like a man hunted by his own memories. And when sleep finally took him, Amara whispered into the silence, "I know what you did to my father." His breath caught, but he didn't wake. The next day things shifted. He gave her permission to use the library, allowed her to eat at the main dining table, gave her a phone, locked of course, but with limited access. It was bait, she knew, or a test, but it didn't matter. With a few taps, she activated a dormant script she had programmed into her palm years ago, a fingerprint clone device hidden beneath her skin. It would only take one swipe on his phone to access his archives, and she got it. His entire email backup, private logs, financial trails, photos of her father's lab, correspondence with the same Russian contact. Every lie, every frame job, every payment made to silence witnesses. But she made one mistake. She stayed too long in his study that night. He found her, not reading, crying, not from guilt, but from the truth. Because in one email dated 6 months before her father's death, Cairo had written, "He's innocent, but if this leak gets out, we all go down." It wasn't him who framed her father. He tried to stop it. He had been used to, and suddenly everything she thought she knew cracked. Cairo didn't call the guards. He didn't drag her out. He just stood there and whispered, "You were never meant to see that." "I had to," she whispered back. Their eyes met, and in that terrifying silence the war changed shape. What began as revenge was now something else. A collision of broken truths, twisted love, and shared pain. But it was too late. Someone else knew she had the files, someone who didn't want the past dug up. That night the estate was attacked, gunmen, dressed in black, faces hidden. Cairo shielded her with his own body as bullets shattered glass and blood-sprayed walls. He dragged her through the fire escape, wounded, his breath heavy with pain and rage. "They came for you," he gasped. "They knew." Amara cried as she wrapped his bleeding shoulder with her scarf. "You saved me." "You were never my prisoner," he said, eyes dimming. "I bought you to protect you. You humiliated me. I had to, so they wouldn't think I cared." The world outside was still burning as the truth between them finally settled like ash. Cairo Donovan wasn't her enemy, he was her shield. And now they were both targets. But she still had the files. She still had the key, and the real enemy had no idea what was coming. The safe house Cairo took her to was hidden deep in the mountains, surrounded by trees that whispered danger with every breeze. He barely spoke during the drive, his arm bleeding through the bandages she tied, but he never took his hand off hers. Not once. It was strange, this silence between them. Before, it was born of hatred. Now it trembled with something else, fear maybe. Or the terrifying realization that they were bound together by a truth that had almost killed them both. Amara stayed awake all night, her body bruised, her heart louder than any storm outside. She watched him sleep, this man who once owned her like property, who now bled for her like a soldier. She remembered the first day he looked through her like glass. Now his every glance felt like fire. Something had changed, not just between them, but inside her. In the morning his enemies found them again, but this time Amara was ready. She'd sent the files to 20 journalists, 3 government watchdogs, and a mysterious hacker group that had once been loyal to her father. If they killed her now, the story would still explode. And it did. News stations all over Europe and America broke the headlines. Corporate conspiracy exposed, CEO Cairo Donovan involved in cover-up, but also hero. She thought he'd be angry. Instead, he stood behind her, shirtless, wounded, and smiling. "You didn't destroy me," he whispered. "I thought I wanted to," she said. "Now I just want the truth to be louder than the pain." He kissed her, not like a man claiming ownership, but like someone surrendering. It was rough, desperate, full of the kind of emotion that doesn't ask permission, and she let him. Because somewhere between revenge and revelation she had fallen for him. Not the billionaire, not the monster, but the broken man who risked his life to save hers, who confessed his failures without excuse. Days passed, the media hunted them, governments launched investigations. But Amara's voice became a movement. From slums to cities, women wrote her name online, called her a warrior, a symbol. Not because she was perfect, but because she faced power with nothing but truth, because she turned her own pain into fire. And when Cairo stood beside her at the international press conference and said, "She saved me," the world knew it wasn't just a headline. It was a love story wrapped in bullets, secrets, and survival. He gave up his empire, sold it. Every dollar he made from it, he donated to whistleblower protections and victims of corporate injustice. Then he turned to Amara and said, "This time I want you to choose me, not because I bought you, but because I would die for you." And she did. With tears in her eyes and her whole soul in her voice, she chose him, not as her savior, but as her partner, as her love. As the one man who saw her not as a debt to pay, but a storm that could never be owned, and people online didn't stop talking. We want more stories like this. This is better than Netflix. Where's part 2 of this couple's life? And Amara smiled as she read the comments, because the world didn't need more fairy tales. It needed stories where broken girls burned their cages and kissed the enemy after turning him into a human again.